You've waited all year for it. We've waited all year for it.
It's the 10 best bourbons
And finished bourbons
of 2024. All right, chapter marks are down below for those of you who just can't wait and need to skip ahead and see the countdown. But for those of you who are going to stick around, we're going to talk through our method. We have a few disclaimers. Obviously, this is a list.
But first, this video is not sponsored, but it is brought to you by our Patreon members and those who support us at whiskyambitions.com. More of that in the middle of this episode. Also, if you're not subscribed to us already, be sure to go ahead and do that so you'll be notified when we come out with our next top 10, which will factor in price and availability, because this one does not, and that sort of leads us into our methods.
Our method. So the way that we approach this list, the best bourbons and finished bourbons of 2024, is the best thing that we tasted throughout the year.
So kind of think of this list as, take a big city. Let's take Chicago, for example. And let's say they're doing the best restaurants of 2024. Now, there's no chance that Taco Bell is going to be on that list, but it doesn't mean that that reviewer who went to all these restaurants and ranked them, that doesn't mean that reviewer doesn't like to go to Taco Bell. That doesn't mean that reviewer doesn't think Taco Bell is a good value for what you get. And that's sort of how this list is. A lot of this stuff is expensive, hard to find, you know, it has a secondary price, da-da-da-da-da.
It's not your everyday pour, and we're not suggesting that it should be.
Exactly. But that's why we do this other list later that factors in that kind of stuff. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty about our methods.
At the beginning of December, we put all of our best bottles of the year into small 2-ounce sample bottles with a name written on the bottom. We mix those all up and randomly select them and assign them a letter.
As we're tasting the whiskey, we'll score it on 4 categories: nose, palate, mouthfeel, and finish. Each category has a possible score of 25 points, for an overall 100 points possible. We then take our 2 scores and later average them to get the average score.
Yeah, we're 2 different people. We have 2 different,
scores. Yeah.
Now, for these initial scores, price and availability are not considered because they're blind, but they will be later.
Now, to keep a measuring stick in this whole mix, we put 5 everyday, what we call staple bourbons, ones that are readily available, often scored well, but don't have a yearly release.
Right, they're not LEs, but we consider them very great values and very great pours for your everyday selection.
So if one of those was to place in the top 10, we'll tell you about it, but it won't be that number. Say it would have placed here, but this episode is just all about what came out in 2024. So it'll be noted, but it's not official.
Right, we just use it as a benchmark for our own knowledge and for yours.
Now, we also included 2 bourbons that didn't meet our criteria, but that we just happened to love. We tossed them in there to see where they would place, and did they place? I don't know. We'll find out as we get into it.
Now, since we scored all of these pours over a big amount of time, and again, between the 2 of us, we want to do what we call our double check at the end. So we pour our top 12, again, blind, and we slowly A/B test them beside each other to make sure that we agree with our final ranking.
Before we get into it, here are the rules.
The bottle must have been released in 2024. Now, laser codes don't count here, so if it's not marketed as a 2024 edition, it can't be included.
Yeah, so basically we can't say, oh, this E.H. Taylor small batch has a laser code that says it was bottled in 2024, ergo it's a 2024 edition, so it counts. It's not marketed that way. They don't have editions.
Right, it's just a always out, always oncoming release.
Single barrels were not considered for this, meaning no picks from stores or clubs or one-offs. However, single barrels released as part of a series were accepted. So for an example of that is like Old Forester President's Choice. They're all single barrels, but they're all released in a calendar year as that year's release of single barrels for that expression.
We're only including bourbons and finished bourbons for now.
Samples sent to us, whether media samples or by friends, are eligible, because a lot of times the best thing you may have tasted all year was when you went over to a bourbon night at a friend's house, or they sent you home with a sample. So samples shared, that's part of the bourbon world, are included.
The release must have been at least 1,000 bottles and not exclusive to only club members. And once more, a trigger warning or disclaimer, just to make this perfectly clear, this is our blind ranking of the best things we tasted all year. And we will be doing, again, another reworked list where we factor in price and availability. We'll have other lists for ryes and things. We can only tell you the best thing that we tasted that meets those categorical rules.
You all get it. All right, now officially breaking into that top 10 with number 10.
Angel's Envy Triple Oak.
One that came out this year. It was released in 2024.
Yeah.
I think this will be the only year that we consider, because I don't think they'll have a 2025 edition that's advertised that way.
But it is definitely a step into their new direction of, the new style of releases that they're doing, kind of more experimental stuff.
This was towards the end of our ranking. It was letter GG in the blind bottles. And I think at this point I had gotten a little shorter in my description. So
he's getting tired of the process.
On the nose, I said pears, cooking food.
Cooking food, wow.
But on the palate, I said peach tea, southern cooking, pie, apples, and cinnamon.
On the nose, I said fresh berries, floral, rich fruit, light oak. I said a lovely nose.
Lovely.
On the palate, I said easy to drink, approachable, fruity and floral, delicate, rich, with notable wood influence, which makes sense based on the expression. And the finish, I said it was a medium finish with a nice fruity, floral, and oaky notes.
Sarah, this one got an average score of 91.75. Now, I do want to mention, I said we picked those 2 bottles that didn't meet the criteria and threw them in there. The bottle that actually ranked 10th was the Watch Hill Proper 20 year. What a difference between 2 bottles there.
Right.
Watch Hill Proper 20, great bottle. We wanted to include it because we loved it, but it's only for club members, and I think it was also a rather
really limited
lower release.
Yeah.
So anecdotally, Watch Hill Proper 20 year came in 10, but not the official 10.
But maybe a reason to consider being a Watch Hill Proper member.
Exactly. All right, what's number 9?
Bardstown Bourbon Company Discovery Series number 12.
We really like this one. We put it up against our GOAT of the Disco Series number 4, and we like the 4 a little bit more, but that's comparing it against our favorite of all time, and it did hang with it. On the nose, I said earthy and rich. Peanuts. On the palate, I said interesting. Plums and fig, earthy, ripe fruit, high proof, and oak. Sounds good to me.
I got some different notes, but still also very good. Some similar. On the nose, I said cherry, grapes, plums, lots of spice. On the palate, I said ripe stone fruit, medium spice, honey, and a really nice mouthfeel with a medium long finish and the stone fruit and lingering spice. Just carrying right on through.
Nice. Sarah, this one had an average score of 92.75. Something to keep in mind, you'll see that these scores don't just keep increasing because, again, that double check where we do things blind is not based on the score, but rather our tasting there together right before this. At number 8, Old Forester Birthday Bourbon.
I don't think I expected this one to come in so high. I mean, it is one that we preferred more so than any other birthday bourbon. That we've seen released, in our time.
Yeah, and it was one of the first years we were actually able to find a bottle.
Yeah.
Shout out to Costco, kind of the hero of our 12 days of bourbon hunting, if you watch that series. On the nose, I said fruity, like gum, and floral. On the palate, I said also gum, very fruity, very floral, and easy.
On the nose, I said chocolate cake, cherries, cream, tea, and vanilla. On the palate, I said rich oak, again with the chocolate cake, the cherries, black forest cake even, and a little hint of coffee with oak, that chocolate, and a little bit of coffee lingering on the finish, and I'll put very drinkable.
Very drinkable, yeah. Very drinkable, easy. So we share some things there.
Notes.
You're a lot more eloquent in your descriptions. As always, I do want to say, Sarah, you did like this one more than me. I scored it an 89, and you scored it a 94.5 for an average of 91.75. So yeah, you were really feeling this one.
I was feeling it.
I was liking it, but not as much as you. But
I mean, I like those, fruity chocolate cake notes.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty good to me.
It's really good.
Eagle Rare 17 year.
Our first BTAC on the list here. Will it be the last? I don't know.
You'll have to wait and see.
Another one that wow.
This would have been my number 1.
Yeah.
Had your score not, with the average.
This is Sarah's number
number
1 of the year, coming in at number 7 overall.
I'm not surprised at all.
I scored it an 88.75.
Ooh, I scored it a 96.5.
For an average of 92.625. Well, let's see what you wrote about it.
Well, I actually wrote a whole book about it.
Abridged version. Reader's Digest.
No, on the nose I got classic Buffalo Trace notes, cinnamon, grape, cherry, milk chocolate. Palate, I said all those things translated with some delicate oak, well balanced, lingering oak and cherry and grape on the finish.
I said lovely on the nose, light, caramel, honey, cherry, and airy. On the palate, I said nice. I said cinnamon apples, oak, light leather, peach tea. Well, it sounds like I really should have scored it a little bit higher.
To each his own.
I guess so.
Well, it still ended up in the top 10, so.
Yeah, top 10, there we go. Now, here's our first actual staple making its way in. So just based on scores alone, Russell's Reserve 10-year would have been number 7. Now,
based on score.
Based on score. Now, this is the edition that we did in the 12 Days of Bourbon Hunting that had the laser code on there, the LLME, so the supposed 15-year blended into it.
But apparently that's been debunked.
Well, Wild Turkey did say there was older stuff blended into it.
We just don't know how old.
They did come out with that statement and said, yeah, there's older stuff blended in there, which happens all the time.
First of all, Russell's 10-year unsung hero of 2024 for us, probably, we can go ahead and say the best value of the year. But again, something we've tasted a lot, something that's probably very familiar to us, comfy, cozy, so we probably scored it well because we love it.
Again, such a juxtaposition. 7 would have been Russell's 10-year, but actually it's Eagle Rare 17.
Since the Russell's 10-year is removed for being a staple.
Correct.
But it just goes to show how good Russell's 10 is.
Yeah, it does. Speaking of Russell's Reserve, it's Russell's Reserve 15-year. I don't know why I was very short on this one. It said spice and lemon. On the palate, I said tropical fruit, melon, grapes, black pepper, lemon, and tea.
On the nose, I said oak and stone fruit, with the stone fruit carrying through on the palate with allspice and a little bit of herbal note, cherry and oak with a long finish, and a nice warm hug.
Yeah, you gave it a 94, Sarah, so 92 is our average. Before, again, I keep saying this, but before we did that last double check where things got rearranged. I'm surprised. I really thought I was beating the drum of Russell's 15 all year.
Apparently it was me.
And you were the one who blind scored it ahead. I do really, really love it. I'm surprised I gave it as low as a 90, but
a 90 is, to be fair, not low.
It is not low. And it's also one of those things, if there was a perfect method of doing this, we would score things blind 10 times in a row, average ourselves, and then average our
averages.
But we don't have time for that or the amount of whiskey for that, but mainly time. But yeah, that coming in at number 6. Crazy. Well, Sarah, I think this would be a great time to take a little break, don't you think?
I suppose.
Tell them about our home on the internet.
Let's do it.
It's whiskyambitions.com. It's where you can get the t-shirt and hat that I'm wearing. The crystal cut Glencairns, listen to that, dinner.
Oh my gosh.
That you can get there. Our flight boards, our stave flight boards, I think we have our elf, he's been working on those, so those may be back in stock by the time this airs. As soon as we get a little of them in, they sell out and we don't have time to mention it.
But we're doing our best.
On here. Our elemental elixir cocktail syrup, more. That's always coming soon at whiskyambitions.com.
And you can become a patron at patreon.com/itsbourbonnight and join our community for as little as $1 a month and help make this episode possible. In return, you get barrel picks, access to exclusive barrel picks, some Russells, speaking of, coming out soon there.
Very soon.
After the episode exclusives and more.
All right, folks, we'll be right back after this. At number 5, Jack Daniel's Coy Hill, 134.7 proof. Sarah, we include that proof in there because these are single barrels, but the whole line that is released each year that is denoted 23, 24 release, etc., are all single barrels. So that's how it is considered. We also, so if you have that proof or if yours is different, just know asterisk, this is that proof.
134.7 specifically.
That we reviewed. We were very close on scoring, 93.75, 94, 94.125 as the average. Sarah, what'd you get on some of them taste notes?
On the nose, I said it smelled deep with rich oak notes and ripe stone fruit, some leather and tobacco in there too. Palate, I said nice, intense oak with dessert and fruity notes, and a lingering oak and tobacco pop of heat on the finish.
Very good. On the nose, I said classic spicy black pepper, not black leather. Brown butter, nice leather. On the palate, I said yum, rich, classic, oak, pepper, savory, some fruits, great finish. Wow.
That one was a punchy one, I remember.
It was a punchy one, 93.75. I think just based on scoring, it was maybe a couple steps above just scoring it in a vacuum. But when you have it and you're trying it A/B testing against the other best of the years, I think the high proof, the punchiness kind of ends up hurting it a little bit.
Right.
And it went down, I think, a couple spots because of that.
Yeah, still very good, but maybe a little less drinkable than some that aren't so in your face.
Exactly. All right, we're moving on to number 4.
George T. Stagg, another BTAC.
So when I said, will it be the only BTAC? I
You
knew.
knew.
I knew. The answer was no. But George T. Stagg, this is one that I liked, well, just a little bit better. I thought it was more than that. 95.5.
93. So I did like the Eagle Rare 17 better, which is funny because in our BTAC episode, that's also how I picked them.
Hey, it tracks.
But it tracks.
And I liked the George T. Stagg better, and I scored it better.
Good to know that blind, we kept up with what we said.
At least in that regard.
Right. What'd you say about it?
Well, on the nose, again, I was pretty shorthanded. I said savory, country ham, and clove.
Oh, okay.
Palate, I said purple.
Makes sense for Buffalo Trace. Purple.
Yeah, purple. Gush of stone fruit. Good proof. Nice hug. Not super long in finish, but really, really good. Milk chocolate and oak.
On the nose, I said strawberry jam, citrus, light spice, and cherry with herbal, viscous, cherry, oak, and stone fruit on the palate. Bold finish with some herbal and spice and oak notes.
So those are actually very, very similar there. A 90, average? 94.25. Yeah. Now, Sarah, here's the real interesting thing.
Based on scores.
Based on scores, the Russell's 10-year was not the last staple bourbon to make it in here. Based on scores, placing it at 4th as rare breed.
Another staple.
Wow.
This is one of those years where we're seeing the staples do really well.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I want to see that every year.
Yeah.
Because I guess a lot of people, us included, hope that if you have the FOMO, if you're like, I can never find a BTAC, there's things like rare breed out there.
And there's just good everyday sub $40 bottles like Russell's 10-year. It feels like we're just singing the praises of Wild Turkey in this episode.
We did include two
turkey products. But they did really, really well.
Well, as we said, it's the year of Russell's 10, so we couldn't leave that out, and we can never leave rare breed out because
it's just a great benchmark measuring stick
it won our
for which to compare.
Best under $100
That's
bracket.
Right, our bracket
so
last year.
We can't leave it.
We can't leave it out.
All right, folks, we're getting into the top 3. It's starting to get serious.
It is.
Oh, what's next?
New Riff 8-year. This one, I mean, it surprised me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's just because it's the first time we're seeing New Riff kind of really pop. I mean, it just like surged up into our top 10.
Yeah, that, and I can't remember when we reviewed it. It may have been on a live. I know we just got a media sample.
We got a media sample? So I'm after a bottle now.
Yeah, I think we may have just reviewed it on a live or something. And I remember liking it at the time, but I don't remember being over the moon, like pounding the drum, like, hey, everybody.
But obviously,
look at this.
We agreed to put it into the contention because we did enjoy it so much.
Absolutely.
And again, this is why we do these things blind. This is why we score them in the way that we do, because sometimes something's not top of mind, and then all of a sudden, bam, there it is. We love New Riff as a company, so I'm really thrilled to see this.
It's high up
average score of 94.25.
Yeah.
It's a good score.
Oh, very good score. Sarah, what'd you get on the nose?
I got sweet bakery pastries like donuts with the palate. Again, glazed donut, rich fruit, delicate spice, and that just carrying through into the finish. I just really enjoyed this one. It was sort of like a simple pleasure, you know? I mean, how good is it to bite into a glazed donut, right?
I wish I could do it every day.
That's what I was getting off this one. What about you?
I said ripe fruit, floral, and savory on the nose. On the palate, I said very nice, almost vintagey.
Ooh.
Fruits and wood sugars and plums dancing in my head.
Interesting. He was feeling very festive.
I was.
We got to get a bottle of that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to make a trip up to the distillery or something.
Goodness. If you saw B-roll and I had the actual bottle, then
it was a success. Great success.
We got it. All right, top 2 time.
Let's go.
Number 2. At number 2, Heaven Hill Heritage Collection, 18-year.
Now, who of you could say that you're surprised by this? We've only been chirping about this one since the beginning of the year, I feel like.
Number 2, though, not number 1.
That is something to note.
So my 2 bottles of 2024, anecdotally, meaning not scored blind, not of any of our process, was Heaven Hill 18-year and Russell's Reserve 15-year.
Those were your two in your mind.
That I said, one of these is going to be the best of the year. Well, guess what? Neither of them were. But number 2. Very good.
I really thought for me, it would have been, if you'd asked me, I would have said Eagle Rare 17 and Heaven Hill 18. Those would have been my answers, which is strange. Those are high in age for my oak threshold, so something to keep in mind. What did you say?
I didn't write a book on this where I thought maybe I would have, but I said fruity, nutty, oaky, dark honey. A lot of E's there. And then on the palate, I also echoed that. I said nutty, oak, honey, apples, pepper, and cinnamon. Sarah, I gave this one a 93.75. Thought I would have scored higher, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. On the nose, I said brown sugar, cherry, like a cherry turnover. Rich and creamy. On the palate, I said spicy, pepper, strong oak, creamy and coating with a strong and spicy finish and lingering oak.
It's another one you actually scored higher than me, 95.
95.
For a very close average score of 94.375. Of course, again, that doesn't matter because we did the double check and things rearranged.
I mean, it's so close at that point, and we did them again in a vacuum. You have to A/B test them.
I remember, back and forth A/B testing these two, which at the time we didn't know what was what, and being like, Sarah, I think
It could go either way. It's so close.
Finally decided this way, and then this one was Heaven Hill 18. This one was number 1.
And what was number 1?
Number 1 is Jack Daniel's 12-year Batch 2.
I did not see this coming. I'll be perfectly honest. I love Jack Daniel's 12-year. I think it's a great product. I did not predict this. If you had asked me throughout the year, what's your best bourbon of the year? It's not the one I would have said. I just would have been like, it's really solid. I would definitely pick it up if I were you.
Yeah.
But I didn't see this coming. I didn't see it beating Heaven Hill 18.
I know. The three, there was 3 Jack Daniels that received throughout the year in sample form. The 12, the 10, and the Coy Hill. All 3 of those we don't have a bottle of. You've probably seen...
We're not crying, don't worry.
Yeah, I said fruity, rich, buttery cookies, baked goods, that's all in the nose. On the palate I said floral, butter cookies again. I think I was hungry, chocolate chips, yeah, probably. And I said amazing.
On the nose I said bold, rich, intense, brown sugar and oak. On the palate, rich, coating mouthfeel, intense oak, dark chocolate with hints of spice. And on the finish, mint, spice, oak, and chocolate with a long finish.
Long
finish.
We like this 0.5 apart from each other.
We were very closely rated on this one.
94, 94.5, 94.25 average.
I gotta say, like, this one and, again, the Heaven Hill 18 and the Eagle Rare 17, like, if you ask me my top 3, it would be those 3. And on any given day, I might rank them differently, but those were the 3 for me.
What I'm kind of pointing out here is our top 3 is a 12-year, an 18-year, makes sense, because a lot of people, it gets that thought of older equals better. Doesn't
Not
always.
necessarily.
And an 8-year coming in number 3.
That really surprised me.
12, 8, 18.
All over the place. Just goes to show you it's not always critical. The age is not always critical.
We had a 17-year with the Eagle Rare. We had a 20-year with the OGD. We had a 16-year with the OGD 16. We had a 20-year with the Watchful Proper.
We're all over the place in terms of age range.
We had a lot of age in there. Well, George C. Stagg's around 15 years, I believe. Yeah.
This was an interesting year for Top 10. I think this is probably our most interesting Top 10 that we've ever done. Mostly because I think this is the first time that we've had access to the BTAC collection, and one of them didn't make it in the top 3. This year,
normally
no.
they're in the top 3 at least.
No top 3 this year.
Wow.
Very good products still, 2 in the top 10, but not 2 in the top 3 like normal.
That's right.
Something to consider.
That is correct. The biggest surprise for me is the new Riff 8-year.
I agree.
The Jack Daniel's 12 also a big surprise coming in number 1.
Underdog.
Yeah, but the new Riff 8 is, I think, the story. The story so far.
I'm really excited to re-examine this list soon. We'll do it after this episode, where we factor in price and availability and see how these things shift from not just those super hard to find LEs, but maybe things, again, like the new Riff 8-year that you might be able to find a little bit easier. And we can actually put our staples in there and see where those fall.
Yeah.
I think that list will be really helpful for some of you.
Well, it's been quite a year. It's been quite a month of blind scoring and ranking.
It was really hard. I had to drink so much bourbon.
Well, a little bit of pressure when you're putting things under a microscope and you're trying to do your best, because there is a lot on the line as far as, we like to take this thing seriously.
I mean, we want to give you the best information for if you have one bottle to splurge on throughout the whole year and you happen to come across one of these and you want to know our opinion, we want to give you the best information that we can if you're gonna make that plunge.
But that's where we gotta leave it for the last time in 2024. Happy New Year's, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And again, if you have not subscribed to us already, we would love to have you start 2025 off with a good resolution.
With us.
You can do so by clicking right up here. There's suggestions of other videos down here. Hope to see you over there in one of those. See you soon. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Shad.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
Happy New Year. Until then, drink more bourbon.